Art Center, and what year you graduated, and what department you graduated from.
Okay.
Great.
You don't have any cue cards?
No, we play fast and loose.
Yeah, and we are live. So you could tell us your name and
Okay.
you graduated?
My name is Emerson Terry. I'm an alumnus of Art Center, College of Design, the old school in Los Angeles on West 3rd Street. Any of the old alumnus probably recognize that place. Anyhow, I have a series of documentary paintings that I produced. The group of paintings that you will see here at Alkebulan are paintings of the civil rights movement. I tried desperately to document what was going on in the 1960s. So all of these paintings were painted back during the actual struggle for liberation in the 60s. And it was trying to do my part in history, along with still working as a professional illustrator. So, do you have any questions for me?
Well, let's start looking at the paintings and maybe talking about what's going on.
Okay, well, let's start here.
Okay.
This particular painting here was done in the 60s, and it was Dr. Martin Luther King and a group of other civil rights marchers. And in the background, you will see the
The United Nations.
United Nations flag. And this woman here was the wife of one of the current senators. I've forgotten her name because it's been quite a while since I made these paintings. And in the process, this is Reverend Shuttlesworth behind Dr. King. And at the time, I put my daughter's image in the picture. I captured her back in those early days. You just met my daughter. Yeah. She's also the curator here at Alkebulan. Okay. Oh, are you interested in the name Alkebulan?
Sure.
Well, the name Alkebulan is one of the early names of the continent of Africa. You know, there were a number of different names for the continent of Africa. It was called, well, I won't bother to go into that because I've forgotten some of the names. Anyhow, below here is a group of students from Clark College who were getting ready to go out and march. And what happened was they had to get up their courage to go face the dogs, the fire hoses, and the billy clubs. And well, as you can see up here, this is a group of students that came to march along with them from the north. And this particular group of students were catching the same hell as the African American students. And here, what I tried to do in this particular painting here, I tried to make a statement, freedom now, and show some of the specific individuals. These were all people who actually were in the march. And as you see, as I got further back into the background, it became very abstract. Okay, I explained that one up there. And up here, you have an an African American who was being chased by cops on horseback. And I don't know if you can tell it or not, but they also had cattle prods. Can you imagine a human being being hit with a cattle prod, which is similar to what they have nowadays is what do they call those things?
Taser.
Well, just another one of those things that I forgot. Over here, this is a group of students, also from Clark College, who are getting up their courage to go march, as you've seen in the other picture over there. And I'm losing my voice. And so consequently, they get together on the campus and they sing. And also, each and every one of these individuals here is a real person who was there at the time. I don't know what their names are, but these were young people who were probably pretty close to my age now.
Did you feel it was important to document this stuff at the time while it was happening?
It was very important to document this history simply because of the fact that there were photographs that were taken, but working as an illustrator in the advertising business, I felt I had to do something. I could not afford to actually go out because I was a freelancer. I couldn't afford to go out and march or demonstrate because I had a family to support also. So my feeling was, if I made paintings documenting this history, when it's happening, someday it might be of some importance. That was quite a while ago. That was back in the 60s, during the 60s.
Did anybody see them at the time? Did you show these paintings?
I showed them to, actually I had them mainly hanging in my house, and I showed them to a number of people who came to the house. There was Leroy Jones, the writer from back in Philadelphia, who's known as, I forgot his new name.
Amiri Baraka. Is that Amiri Baraka?
Amiri Baraka.
Yeah.
And he and the gentleman who started the Kwanzaa celebration came to the house to see the paintings. And we live across the street from John Muir High School. So all the kids from the high school came out, and they were standing around on the sidewalk to see Amir Baraka and the other gentleman's name. I shouldn't. I know this as well as I know my own name, but I'll remember it later.
Ron Karenga. Ron Karenga. Can you hear me? Ron Karenga.
Ron Karenga. And that was very interesting. And then we had other people who would come to the house for different reasons. So consequently, I really was not in the business of being a painter and trying to exhibit in galleries. I was making a statement because I wanted to see this material documented. What happened was I had been a member of the Society of Illustrators in Los Angeles, and we were documenting the history of the Air Force, the United States Air Force. And we would donate paintings to the Air Force, and then they would give us a banquet back in Washington, D.C. And what happened was we were flying back from Washington, and I got to thinking, I'm documenting history of the Air Force. I should be documenting my own history, you know? And so that's how the civil rights paintings, part of the reason the civil rights paintings got started, you know? There's a whole lot of things that have happened over the years. But anyhow, let's move on. Right here, this picture here is in Torrance, California. A friend of mine who was a photographer happened to hear that there was going to be a set-in at this housing area where there was a new construction development. But the problem was they were not allowing African Americans to rent or purchase in this housing construction. And so this gentleman here was the president of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality. And this gentleman over here was also a member of it. And the two of them were having a sit-in when all of a sudden the district attorney showed up with a bunch of policemen. And so he caught this photograph of them carrying him out. And I documented the photograph. I don't know where the photograph is at now, but it was a black and white photograph, and I tried to document it as well as possible with the intensity of the color being deep blue, and hopefully the concepts that I was using was the blue for the peaceful struggle and the red for, well, I guess the red actually explains itself pretty well.
Did most of these come from a photograph or from memory or imagination?
From photographs, most of them. I got black and white photographs from different places while this stuff was going on at the time. And then I organized it as an illustrator and put other touches to it. Right up above there, this gentleman's name is Farmer. He was one of the early civil rights gentlemen who struggled along with the marches. And he was a young man that was very involved with SNCC, Students Coordinating Committee, and also with Dr. King's marches and whatnot. And so then I'll move over here a little bit further. And this one I threw in because this is an image of Fredrick Douglass. And I don't know if you're familiar with Fredrick Douglass history.
Yeah.
Oh, you are? Fredrick Douglass said that power yields nothing without a demand. Never did and never will. So people have to make a demand, even right today. People have to demand good government, and they have to get bad people out of the government. That's just another little thing of throwing in about what's going on today. The history of what is happening today is so familiar because a lot of this stuff is just a repeat of the same things that have happened before. Well, we'll move on a bit further. This was another group of students from Clark College who were participating in the marches. And you might wonder why all the yellow jackets. I think at the time I was wearing a yellow trench coat, and that was very popular at the time. As you can see down at the picture at the bottom, there's the yellow jackets or trench coats. And here again, the people making a demand that they wanted freedom, and they wanted it now. And when they said freedom, they were not talking about being incarcerated. They were talking about all of the terrible consequences of being an African in this society, which almost said the white man has no, rather the black man. How's that go? The black man has no rights that the white man has to respect, something like that. But anyhow, when you begin to study the history, and this is modern history, but when you begin to study ancient history, all of a sudden you find out civilization started on the continent of Africa, where you had the beginnings of mathematics, astronomy, science, history. When you look at some of the ancient structures, such as the pyramids, which they have never been able to duplicate, and some of the temples of Karnak, and when you see these places, the gigantic structures, and it is just impossible to not understand how advanced a civilization there was there before the invasion and the colonization. But anyhow, we'll get back to the paintings. Here again, these are some of the paintings that I did of Dr. King in some of the positions where he was struggling to communicate his ideas, his thoughts. Over here, this was a young girl who was on her way to church on a Sunday morning in Birmingham. And what happened was she sat down, got down on her knees in the street and began to pray. And she was all dressed for church, as you can see.
Did you believe things could change at the time? When you were painting these, did you believe that this was that this movement was going to change things?
Well, I guess I knew that things have to change. There's an old song, "Change is Gonna Come." And I know from just my own personal experience that nothing stays the same. The only thing we can really count on is change, and hopefully change for the better. Sometimes it's changed for the worse, but hopefully it's changed for the better. Okay, well, here again, this is Birmingham, and this is a young lady who was out there trying to demonstrate. And you had the fire department turning these high-pressure hoses on individuals. You've probably seen some, even recently, of these incidents. And this was back in the 60s. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And then moving up a little higher, this is Dr. Martin Luther King leading a group of Catholic priests and regular clergymen on the way to Selma. And what I tried to show here again, was the cattle prods that were being used on people. Up above here is an incident where this was just before the Selma March, and this little boy was down on the ground hollering, trying to look over the crowd and hollering, "I can't see Dr. King. I can't see Dr. King." And this Canadian minister who happened to be there picked him up and put him on his shoulders. So you can see, all these people are individuals who lived back in that time and who were there. If you notice, one thing that I did do here on a lot of paintings, I tried to incorporate some abstraction in the skies and stuff like that. And even in people sometimes, well, in the clothing and things like that. But I thought just a plain sky or background would not have the impact that you have with this energy.
Yeah. You were in Los Angeles? Were you in Los Angeles during this whole period of time?
I was actually here in Pasadena.
Wow.
Because we moved from Los Angeles to Pasadena in 1956, before Art Center moved up on the hill. You know?
Paved the way.
Yeah, I think they were following me.
Yeah.
But anyhow, here again.
Were there protests here that you participated in, or was there?
Well, I did go to some of the things that were happening in Los Angeles, and even after that, you know, where it was possible for me to get to those things. I definitely could not get back east to the protest there. But I did go to some of them here, and well, anyhow.
Well, you were making your voice heard through your paintings.
Yeah, well, at the same time, see, when you're a freelance illustrator or freelance designer or art director, you got to be out there hustling all the time to stay busy. And so consequently, it doesn't leave much free time. But at the time when I was making these paintings, there was no intention of doing a whole series of paintings. Every time something would happen, I'd get upset, and so I try to document it, you know.
So it was an outlet too.
Yes, right, you know. So anyhow, up here, this is one of those Sunday morning things again, and this woman, I guess there's no explanation really needed. But you notice there's Coca-Cola in the background. And alum cigarettes, which ties into the advertising thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
This particular painting here, I was shocked when I saw the image of the National Guard in Alabama with their Confederate flag, the U.S. Army. And so what I tried to do here again, being an illustrator, I tried to pull all those elements together and somewhat abstraction and somewhat realism so that you could get the feeling. And here again, this flag is still flying in many places in the South. And what we used to say, there's down south and then there's up south, because many places in the north are just as bad. You know? Of course, there's many there's quite a few good people in the South who have been fighting against this. We have a problem of ignorance, I guess I would call it. There's so many people who don't know the history, their history, or anyone else's history. And when people begin to know the history, it makes a difference, you know. We have one small planet that peoples. There's only one race, and that's a human race. But it seems as how many people just have not woke up yet. Hopefully they will before Trump takes over. Well, he's already in. But what's happening now is people beginning to wonder, how long will he be there? He says 8 years. Well, that's another story. Now we get back to history again. This was a painting I did back quite a while ago in the early days of Crispus Attucks. You know who Crispus Attucks was?
No.
Crispus Attucks was the first person killed in the Revolutionary War, and he happened to be an African. And he was fighting with the British. Of course, at the same time, there were a lot of Africans who fought with the British, an awful lot of them. And there were some that even fought on the side of, oh no, this is the Revolutionary War. Yeah, anyhow, anybody who's interested in this story should look up the name Crispus Attucks. And in Boston, when they were fighting against the British. And that history there again. In school, we were taught one form of history about the Civil War, not the Civil War, but the Revolutionary War, and about the Civil War. And it's a strange thing. Just this past year, a young man, young football player, decided he was going to take a knee instead of standing for the anthem. And when we found out what the actual second stanza of the anthem was, it was replete with racist statements and things. I can't repeat it right now because I don't remember it that well, but anyone who's interested can look it up. I think what it said, can you see? Is Star Spangled Banner still waving? And something to the effect that slavery forever in the South. I don't know whether it says South or not, but anyhow, as you can see, I'm confused about a lot of this stuff because I'm trying to dig back in my memory, and a lot of it I remember, and a lot of it I don't remember. But there again, you've seen the whole exhibit, and this exhibit was put up by my daughter, Rie Owens, and on the other wall, there are a number of other artists who also were involved in this exhibit. And I think that every illustrator or painter should be about the business of documenting the history that's going on right in their time, because you can think back about it and you can read about it, but if you don't see the images, something's missing. But now with the new technology, a lot of this stuff is being saved. A lot of stuff was saved through regular black and white film, whether it be movie or whether it be still pictures. But sometimes it gets lost, and that's my story.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Very good.
one other thing I might say, you might wonder why I wear this outfit. This is called the Batakan, and it's from Ghana, and it was sent to me by a friend in Ghana by the name of Jabona Apia. Jabona Apia graduated from Art Center. He studied here, and I think he went through undergraduate and graduate, but when he came here, he was also a professor at the University of Kumasi. And he went back and he's now still teaching at the University of Kumasi. And he thought that I should have one of my traditional clothes and hat.
How cool. You met him at Art Center, or you met him after?
I met him at Art Center. As a matter of fact, one of my daughters was going to Art Center at the time, and she introduced him to us. And so we became close friends with him and his family. He had 2 boys and a wife that he brought over while he was gone to Art Center. And what happened was, while they were here, they had another daughter. And the interesting thing is, I made a documentary film about the naming ceremony, which they had, a Ghanaian naming ceremony. And the interesting thing, Jabona came back last year, I think it was around July of last year. And he came back because he was he came back with his daughter, who now is a doctor in Philadelphia. And so they came out to see Art Center and to see Los Angeles, where she was born and where she had her naming society. So that's part of the story. And if you don't shut me up, I'll just keep right on talking.
Well, thank you so much.
So long, folks. So long.